I almost killed myself. It was summer of 2022. I was sitting in my car, just got off my shift at Taco Bell. I reach into my glove box and I pull out a 10-inch hunting knife. I pull out the hunting knife and I'm just holding it like this. I even have it right here. I'm not gonna show it on camera, but I do have this hunting knife right here. I was holding it like this and I genuinely wanted to do it. I felt so lonely, depressed. I was anxious. All these negative, fallen human emotions, and a voice in the back of my head told me to drive that knife through my neck. I didn't do it, but I very easily could have. Looking back almost 2 years later, I now understand what was going on. There was a spiritual war for my soul at this time. There was a demon that genuinely wanted me dead. Now, demons hate us, but I truly feel I have a purpose in my life, and because of that, I've been attacked. I believe an angel, just like how the demon was trying to almost force my hand to do it. I felt the urge to actually, it was like something was pushing my arm to actually, like, moving my body for me, which there's been a lot of experiences of suicide attempts where people have felt like they were being forced and like moved by something else. This is why when people get angry, when people have like really bad anger, like fits of rage, they say, my body moved on my own. What do you think that is? There's a spiritual realm we can't see. This demon wanted to kill me. He wanted me to do it because he can't do it himself. That'd be against free will law of the universe. He wanted me to do it. He wanted me to take the easy way out. And this angel that I encountered, or this angel that was guarding me, we all have guardian angels, by the way. Some of us have more than one. I felt a sudden rush of peace in a way. A sudden rush of, I wouldn't say it's audible voice, but I felt like I knew everything was going to be okay. I dropped the knife, I put it back. I just remember what I was feeling back then in that moment. The chest pain, the actual chest pain of how sad I was and how hurt my soul was, to where I was actually feeling physical chest pain from it, from the stress and sadness. My mind was messed up. I could have done something very evil at this time of my life, very wrong, because I didn't feel anything. This is kind of interesting. You see all these news headlines of people saying, my little boy would never do something like this. He would never shoot up a school. That's what my mom would have said about me. And there's no bias there. I was a sweet little boy who was corrupted by the world, by sin, by demons, by the devil's ways. I was living in too much sin, watching porn, addicted to substance, addicted to nasty, gross things. I was addicted to violence and imagining fighting and imagining very evil scenarios of me violently attacking somebody that I don't even know why I had thoughts about him like that. Like my ex's boyfriend. I thought about beating his ass and stabbing him multiple times with a knife, with my hunting knife. Do you realize how sick that is? That is what happens when a good soul created by God gets corrupted by the devil. And it can happen to anybody. I'm not going to say his name. I have a friend who I grew up with, childhood best friend. He ended up watching porn and getting really deep into it. He's out of it now. I won't say his name, but he is the kind of person who, he was homeschooled his whole life. He was he was never in the world. You would never imagine him to do such a thing. He was so innocent and pure, and he never lied. I've never heard this guy lie before in my entire life. I'm sure he has, but I've never seen it. And it's like just the coolest kind of guy. Like, you can trust this guy with your life. And he got into porn. And when I found out about that, I realized it's not about the person. It's about the corruption. And anybody can get corrupted. The nicest guy you know, the nicest woman you know can get corrupted by sin. Because it happened to me, it happened to my friend. And it really happens to everybody to some degree. We've all been corrupted by this fallen world. We've all lied. We've all sinned. We've all done something wrong. Some to greater degrees, some to, not so much, kind of inconsequential to some degree. But when you live in that continual sin, you are at rock bottom. I mean, you get to rock bottom. And I was at rock bottom, and somehow God pulled me out. I was atheist at this time. I'm not going to go through my whole testimony because that's for a different video. But I should not be Christian right now. I should not be following Jesus. I should not be doing any of this. I should not be making videos about ministry, about spiritual health, or self-improvement in general, about improving your life. How boring is that? Oh, meditate and get sunlight and get in nature and pray and go to the gym. I mean, work really hard, make money. Like, these things I would have never even cared about. I was too busy watching anime, wasting my time, working a shit job I didn't like, watching porn, watching disgusting things, degeneracy. But that's not who I was. Even though we have free will, my soul didn't want to live that life. My soul, I did not want to live that life. I didn't want to die in that. I don't want it to be my legacy. God called me, but a lot of people are called by God. Everyone's called, but few are chosen. You have to make your decision that you want to escape hell. You have to decide, I want to escape hell. I want to live this spiritual, fulfilling life. I want to worship a God that loves me. I want to worship a God who created all the good things in life. I don't want to break his heart by dying in my sin, by dying and living my entire existence not giving a shit about him, and instead choosing the devil. You know how that breaks his heart? Choosing the devil and his ways over him. We're like lost sheep being led to slaughter. We don't want this life. We don't want degeneracy. We don't want to waste our time. We don't want to do these things that destroy our soul. Even if our flesh likes it, even if it feels kind of good, it does, But we don't want to do these things. And yet we do it. And that destroys God's heart. I don't want to destroy God's heart. I don't want you to destroy God's heart. I don't want you to have this contempt and this hate for God. You don't even know who God is. I didn't know who God was. If you're a Muslim, you don't know who God is. How are you going to know a God you can't see, you can't hear, you don't know nothing about? Your gospel isn't even from God, it's from a fallen angel. The Quran talks about that too. I was Muslim. I was raised a Muslim, by the way. If people don't know my story, I was raised a Muslim. I didn't choose Christianity just because I felt like it, just because it was a pretty, my 90-minute Jesus, 90-minute church session, hallelujah. I didn't choose it because of that. I chose it because I wanted to experience God. I wanted to experience what it felt like to be a kid again, the innocence, the purity, the love in my heart. I wanted to feel these things wholeheartedly. I thought Jesus was boring, uninteresting. It didn't make any sense. But when I softened my heart and I kept learning and I kept chasing and I kept trying to learn and understand, why is Jesus the way? Why is Jesus God? Why would this make any sense? When I learned for myself and pairing that with good habits and doing the good habits, those two things brought me very close to God. That's what brought me closer to God in the first place, was doing the good things, which brought me closer to God, and actually seeking the knowledge to chase after God. Even though I didn't understand who he was, even though I didn't trust him, even though I didn't worship him, because I didn't understand who he was, but I still actively learned And that's the only reason why I'm Christian today. This isn't for me to share my church. This isn't for me to share this religion. I don't care about numbers. I don't care if Islam beats Christianity, higher number, like they hit, they surpass us. I don't care about that stuff. When I was Muslim, I cared about that stuff. I was like, oh, Muslims, we're going to take over the world. Oh, yeah. It was so intrinsically motivated. Christianity is not intrinsically motivated. I am motivated by your soul. I want your soul to go to heaven. I want you to go to heaven. Most of all. But also, I want you to live a good spiritual life, a fulfilling life. I want you to understand the devil and his schemes so that you won't fall in his trap again, so you can overcome him, so that you can fight demons, you can wage war against them and win the battle for your soul. That's all I want for you. The only way is Jesus, but you can still grow as a person. You can still learn. You can still seek it out. It took me over a year to actually understand and give my life to Christ after going to church for the first time. After going to church for the first time, going to camps and reading Bible study and watching pastors and listening to podcasts and reading books. It took me almost an entire year before I actually gave my life to Christ after that. In fact, it took me over a year now that I think about it. It wasn't until around February or March of this year, or maybe January, but I think it was February, March, before I gave my life to Christ truly. And I was going to church. I went to a camp in January 22. I was going to church for a very long while. Church doesn't make you a Christian. It's simply a gathering place. It's simply a sharing of faith. It's simply worship. But it's not, if there's a lot of people who only go to church and they are not real Christians. Many of them aren't, unfortunately. They're being led by the devil. That's why people say, oh, why would I, become Christian? Look at all these pastors or priests who are, raping kids. It's like, yeah, but they're not Christian. If they're raping kids, they're not Christian. A lot of them aren't. A lot of these pastors are not Christian. Thankfully, I have a really good pastor. He's very anointed. But even then, I don't make my entire life around church. I make it around God and Jesus. This is the God I worship. This is the God I serve. And my life is centered around him. And guess what? My life has been happier. I went from being depressed and anxious and hating my life and almost at the verge of suicide. I had a knife right here. I was about to shove it down my neck. I'm serious. I know it's very dramatic. But I was this close to killing myself. I hated my life. If anybody's been in that position, they know the thoughts and the emotions they're feeling. It is not a good place to be in. It is very dark and very evil and very depressing. And yet, somehow I was saved. Somehow God chose me. But he can choose you. It's free will. You can still make the choice yourself as well. You can choose God. Matthew 7:7, seek and you will find. And there's another verse, I don't quite know exactly. My memory verses aren't the greatest. But if you seek me, I will seek you. If you come after me, I will come after you. If you desire, if you choose God, God will choose you. We have the free will to choose. And that's really all this is. We have the free will to choose God or the devil, God's ways or the devil's ways, porn or purity and innocence, and desexualizing your brain, thinking of women and how we're supposed to think of them, real relationships versus fake relationships and lust and friends with benefits, things that feel good in the moment but really actually make our lives a lot worse. But I was going to explain the rest of my story of how I found God. So I'll just summarize that really quick. In late 2022, I got kicked out of my parents' house for being Christian. They're Muslim, so they didn't really like that. They're very earthly motivated. I love my parents, by the way, but they're very earthly motivated, just like as many Muslims are. Friend's family took me in. I lived with him and his parents, and that brought me a lot closer to God. Of course, that was certainly a God thing. God certainly put it on their hearts to take me in. And eventually, they didn't kick me out, but they kind of told me, okay. And I was paying them rent and everything, but I lost my job, and I was I was going to say something to them, and then they said something. They're like, Zach, you just need to move on. You need to find your way in life. And it was all on good terms. I love them. They're amazing. I still hang out with them. I still have dinner with them. I go to church with them. They're awesome people. I love them. They're great. but I was kind of worried. I was going to be homeless, living in my car, traveling around, which didn't sound like a terrible idea, except it was like 20 degrees out every night. I ended up spending several months living in my car, traveling around on my villain arc, I guess you could say. I hate that term, but I was very just on my own. And every emotion I felt in the summer of 22 was heightened. But now I had the experience of God. And I know God's way, and I know the devil's way. And I wanted to choose God's way, but I didn't know how. Early this year, I gave my life to Christ. I cried out. I'm not exaggerating when I say the feeling of peace that I felt, the feeling of love and peace in my heart has been never greater than that moment right there. I don't even know how else to explain it. It was the best feeling in my life. So when I say I want you to become Christian, it's not for my church's sake. It's not even for God's sake. It's for your sake. If my neighbor's house is on fire, I'm going to yell out to them. Get out. Your house is on fire. Coming into 2024, this is exactly how I feel right now. I am worried. Next year is going to be a hard year. I've been convicted of that already. It's going to be difficult. There's things I know that are going to go on, or at least plan to go on. It's not going to be good. People need to be saved. People need to understand the truth. Thankfully, we live in an era where we are actually waking up. A lot of people are waking up to the truth. We have speakers like Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, Elon Musk, all these creators, the Tate brothers, to some degree, and Owen Schroyer. All these people are Alex Jones. I don't think I mentioned him. How could I not mention him? A lot of these guys are speaking the truth, and a lot of people are waking up. But there also needs to be an emphasis on the spiritual realm, how the spiritual realm works. Because when you have knowledge of the spiritual realm, you understand everything else. Everything else makes sense. What happens in the world makes sense. The Bible makes sense. World events, pandemics, they all make sense. I might have to actually censor that. I don't know if YouTube's going to take it down because I said that word. Oh well. As somebody who personally experienced the lowest of lows, verge of suicide, to experiencing this peace and love and fulfillment, and like you want to just cry because you're so filled with the Holy Spirit and filled with peace. And of course, I'm not like that 24/7, but I mean, when I'm doing the right things and I'm following God and worshiping God, yeah, I do kind of feel some degree of that. Nothing like that one experience, by the way. But even so, my life is so much better with Jesus. My life is so much better after that moment, because I know I've actually experienced the lowest of lows and the highest of highs. I understand. When I do these videos, I'm talking to my younger self. I'm talking to my 15, 16-year-old self who was chasing after women and chasing after success and fame and money, friends, popularity, recognition. And let me tell you, that stuff is all nice. If I could just tell him one thing, it'd be give your life to Christ. Spiritual growth. You want to live this lifestyle. You want to go back to how you felt as a kid. You want to feel that purity, that innocence, that love, the faith you have from your parents. We have to have faith with God now, but as kids, we had faith to our parents. We knew we were going to get our next meal. We knew we were going to be okay. We'll have a shelter over our head. Our parents will take care of us. That's how we have to feel about God. You can escape hell. You can truly escape hell. And I really hope you do. There's no intrinsic benefit for me to say this. There's no, maybe you'll come to my church and give me money. And I'm not even the pastor there. I'm not getting money. But it's not for intrinsic. What I'm saying is it's not for intrinsic benefit. It's not for personal gain. I just want you to be saved, man. I want you to experience heaven one day, but also experience heaven on earth. Because a lot of people, the closest heaven they're experiencing is on earth. They'll never see heaven. This is the closest heaven they'll experience. The closest to heaven, that is. And for a lot of people, this is the closest to hell they'll experience. And life is kind of both ways, but you get to choose. If you're living God's way, you will be so much closer to feeling like heaven and peace and love and all these good attributes. But if you're closer to the devil, you will feel like hell. You will feel tortured. You'll not be mentally happy. You will not be mentally content. You think these celebrities are happy? Some of them are. Some of them actually do feel kind of good. They have money and they get this nice little watch and they get the dopamine rush from buying that new car and this woman and new woman every night. And it's like, we do kind of feel jealous of that. But let me tell you, I would rather be me any day over these celebrities who have $10 million, $100 million, $500 million, fame, fortune, popularity, relevance. I'm telling you, I'd rather be me any day. I have $500 in my bank account right now. That's my rent. I would rather be me than be them. And I'm saying that wholeheartedly. We have to put God over everything else in our life. We have to put God number one. Because only in that will we find peace and love. And if we're putting God number one, everything else will come. I truly believe that. And here I am. I'm not depressed, not anxious. I don't hate my life. The only time I ever feel depressed or unfulfilled is when I'm not following my purpose and when I'm not doing what God wants me to do. Otherwise, this is the best I've ever felt, man. I hope you feel this way too one day. All of heaven rejoiced as I made my decision to follow Christ, to turn to the side of good. All of heaven rejoiced. My name. They know my name. And they can know your name. All of hell sighed because they know this is only the beginning. This is why my attacks have been so strong recently. This is why I'm getting night terrors. This is why I'm getting sleep paralysis. This is why I'm getting distractions after distraction after distraction. This is all spiritual warfare because they know the plan God has for me. They know what I have in my heart. And that's to preach the gospel. That's to share the truth, to share my experience, to turn people to Christ, because that is the only way to live life. And many people don't even know that this is an option. Because all they see is this pretty Christianity, go to church, and God loves you. He has your best interests at heart. Hell has to deploy more demons to destroy my purpose. Now, they want to turn my soul back to darkness. Because it's one thing to save yourself, but to save other people, that's a big thing. My life didn't get easier when I gave my life to Christ, but I felt peace in every decision. I had, $50 in my bank account. I felt peace. Of course, stress and peace, but stress, that's not really synonymous. I mean, you can feel stress and still be at peace in a way. You can feel the stress of having to make a decision, but you can still feel peace in knowing that whatever happens, God will have your back. And it will all work out. This entire time I'm recording this video, this entire time I've planned this ministry, the entire time I've been building my studio, and the entire time I've just been living life the last few months, I know every risk I take, it might not work out, but God has a plan for me, and God will make sure I'm okay. If God is gonna, and I don't know the exact verse in Matthew, but if God takes care of the birds, if the birds don't store their food and yet they still get fed every day, how much more are we than birds? We'll be fine. We'll be fine. This video is getting a little too long. I gotta end it here. I didn't really have a purpose for this video. I just kind of wanted to talk. I've experienced hell. I've experienced the devil. I've experienced evil, depression, anxiety. The way God does not desire for us to live, I experienced that, and it was terrible. That is not a way to live life. The way of discipline, the way of love and peace, and the way of doing the right thing and being useful and helpful and being kind and being grateful for things. I'm grateful for the sun right now. The sun is shining. But to think where I came from, to think of where my life could have gone down a different turn if I didn't come to Christ, I might not be alive right now. I might genuinely be dead. I mean, I was that close in that one time and probably could have had another instance where I just did it. Thank God I chose God over the devil in that moment. I could have taken the easy way out. I could have done it, gone to hell, and been over with. It wouldn't have gotten better. Trust me. I would have gone to hell. You can escape hell, bro. And I pray you do. So, I will continue to pray. I love you all. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.